and welcome back to the Flyers Faceoff podcast, the show where we discuss Flyers hockey and nothing but Flyers hockey, so help us God. I am your lovable host, Kevin Fortier. You can follow me on Twitter at KSFortier and follow the show at Flyers Faceoff. I am very happy tonight to have two very well-known Flyers fans and podcasters. They are both friends of the show and have had me on their show several times. First, we have the one, the only Isaiah from the O&B Puckcast show. As if there were any Flyers fans that did not know where they could find you, Isaiah, tell the listeners where they can track you down.
Thanks for having me on. If you want to get in touch with me on Twitter, I'm at Isaiah, ISAIAH _520, Isaiah _520, and of course the O&B Puckcast at O&B Puck, at O&B Puck.
We also have Isaiah's co-host, and some might say better half, the man who nobody beats in the kitchen, Chef. Chef, where can people find you online if they want to?
Well, you can find me at Chef to the Left B on Twitter. You can also get a hold of me at Chef at Steampub on Facebook.com, and you can always find me at Steampub in Southampton, PA, too, if you happen to be in the neighborhood.
So, do you dress up in those weird costumes with like the tubing and all that stuff?
No, I have when we did our live remote, I did break out. I have to admit, when it was last year, it was right before the outdoor game with Pittsburgh. Yeah, and I broke out my my Winter Classic version of my chef coat. So it was big orange and black. It was awesome.
Very nice. Well, we've got a fun show, so why don't we go ahead and jump right in. The Flyers have had a tremendous week. They have won 4 straight, and against some really tough competition going back, they beat Carolina and Montreal at home, and then they went on the road to knock off Toronto and Boston. These were all Eastern Conference teams and were well above 500 in the standings. The Carolina game was actually the only game that did not end up going into overtime, and as a cautionary note, it was also the only game that the Flyers did not blow a 2-0 lead. However, if you look at the last 10, the Flyers are 7-2-1, and they are a very respectable 6-1-1 at home and 10-5-2 overall, and that puts them at 3rd place in the Metropolitan Division. We want to focus on some of the key items that we see that has been driving success for the Flyers. Just a few of these. I think one of the most important ones, I think, is the play of the young Flyers, the new kids that have come up in the last few years. They are really driving a lot of the performance on the ice. We've seen, as opposed to last year where the Flyers struggled through 8 different goaltenders, the net has been pretty stable between Carter Hart and Elliott. Hart was a little shaky the first few games, but he certainly has found his game again. The defense is playing very, very well. You're not seeing a lot of the turnovers that we were seeing last year. And the last time I looked, they were number 1 in the lowest average shots on goal per game. The special teams are both doing really well. The penalty kill is 6 overall. The power play has dropped a little bit of late. They're 11th, and obviously having a legit NHL coach has helped. So we're going to deep dive into each one of these, but we'll start off by just kind of the 100-foot view. So Isaiah, last summer there were questions about bringing Elliott back due to some concerns about his health. He seems to have answered those and then some. Like I said, Hart kind of started off shaky, but has returned to form. From what you've observed, are you comfortable with the goalie tandem?
Well, I think that we still need more time with that. It's great that Carter Hart had the mental fortitude to overcome some really shaky play earlier this year, and that augurs well going forward. But for me, what's most important is that Brian Elliott's games are kept in that 30 to 35 range. If that's the case, I can live with him as a backup, and I think he's actually a good backup. The problem becomes if he has to play more because of injury or ineffectiveness of Carter Hart, then we're going to see the kind of Brian Elliott who's kind of like what he is now, a 909 goalie. He's had, when he's good, he's good. When he's bad, he's really bad. But in smaller doses, he can be very, very effective. But if you're leaning on him, that's when you run into trouble. So I'm happy so far with what they're doing. Obviously, their numbers are skewed by the 3 really bad games in Calgary, on the island, and in Pittsburgh particularly. But if they have this kind of ratio to games where now it's going to be like 50 games for Carter Hart and 32 for Brian Elliott in that range, I think the Flyers would really be in pretty good shape.
I agree 100%. You were saying there was a couple of craters there. Elliott had that 6-goal game against Pittsburgh that kind of, really threw his numbers. Overall, like you said, .910 save percentage, 2.88 goals against average. But if you back that out, obviously his numbers look a little bit better. Carter Hart is overall .893 save percentage, 2.71 goals against. But in the last 4 games that he's won, his save percentage is .929 and his goals against is 2.00. So, Chef, looking at Hart and Elliott and knowing that it's early, what do you think? Do you think that tandem could get the Flyers to the playoffs and to potentially make some kind of push?
I'm going to conservatively say yes. I kind of agree with Isaiah. The one thing I've noticed this year that I've seen, especially out of Elliott. Now, last night, just a sidebar, was Carter Hart's lateral movement, getting across and being squared to the shooter, is probably been nothing short of almost amazing. I mean, we looked at that. You look at that, and it shows you where he's back in his groove, and that's how I look at it. When he was having problems, he wasn't squared to the shooter, his feet weren't set, stuff like that. So, but then I flip to Elliott, and I look at Elliott, and there's some things I like too. I mean, he seems to be not flopping as much as he did last year. I think a little bit of that probably was because he was hurt last year. And I actually think he's probably, he said it himself, he feels the best he's felt in years. And it could possibly be true. Nagging injuries here and there all over the place. I mean, look at what happened to G. It took G a whole year to come back to form from what he was when he was injured. So I'm thinking along the same lines as Elliott, him getting that extra time this summer and really healing up, I think has done a lot of good.
Yeah, absolutely. I was certainly one of the loudest critics of the Hackstall era and his usage of the goalies, whether it was Mason and Newby or Newby and Elliott. I mean, he basically would just grind somebody into the ground, go to the next guy, grind him into the ground, and then go back to the first guy. And that led to all those injuries that we saw with Elliott at the end of that, was it 2017-2018 season, and then going into the fall last year. Obviously, we don't think that's going to be the case now. Now, Isaiah did point to what happens if Carter Hart gets injured, or if he just completely craps the bed for whatever reason. There's some risk there, but they certainly seem to be playing well of late. And like you said, I mean, watching Carter Hart last night in the third period, I mean, it was just mind-boggling. On that second Bruins power play, I mean, he gets all the way over to his left to get his glove just barely on that Bergeron shot, and then flies back to the other side to stop. Was it Pasternak or Marchand?
Pasternak.
Yeah, I mean, he gets all the way back over and makes that save. I mean, it was phenomenal to watch him. I mean, his lateral movement when he's on is freaking spectacular. Okay, Isaiah, before we move on, anything else on the goalie situation?
Well, yeah, I just want to mention when Carter Hart has a quality that we haven't seen, I don't think we've ever really seen since almost Bernie Perron, in that he can correct himself, the coaches, where he'll go into a funk, and what he does is so optimized and so systematic. He can meet with Kim Dillabaugh, their goalie coach, go through some video, work on some stuff, and come out and be a new goalie. Because when he's not like Chef was saying, when he's not together, he's not square to the shooter. And he also kind of makes himself a little small. I was talking to Jason Martinez about that, or tweeting, what have you. But he's able to correct that. So it's kind of like adjusting parameters on a receiver or something. It's crazy the way he can bounce back, and it gives you hope that even when he goes through a rough stretch, he can rebound, and you're confident in him going forward.
That's a great point. Let's take a look at special teams. Last year, obviously, the Flyers in the first half were just absolutely horrendous. I mean, at one point they had the worst power play and the worst penalty kill in the NHL. When they got rid of Hackstall and they stopped using Weiss and Laterra, one of the top penalty killing pairings, the penalty kill certainly did better in the second half of the season. It's been strong this year. They're 6 overall. They're 2 for the last 14 in the 6 games that they've played in the month of November. The power play is 11th right now, although I think they got up as high as 8th, but they've been on a little bit of a slide. They're 4 for the last 23. Chef, what do you think are the biggest reasons for the turnaround? Let's start on the penalty kill.
I think you got to go with the coaching as a number 1%. He did a great job, and I think we touched on it. Like, I think it was when we were doing a show last year and you were on. We talked about, like, what does somebody like Oscar Lindblom bring to the table? And I was always a big Lindy fan. I thought he was going to be something 2.5 years ago. He had a little mishap, but and I blame the coaches a little bit at the time for that. He wasn't allowed to flourish, I thought. And we said, you were on the show, and I think we said, in order to get a niche to fill a void on this team, like, you can get your foot in the door on the special teams, especially on the penalty kill, because it was atrocious at the time. And I think looking back, we had referenced like certain players that were young, and I know we're going to lead to there. I don't want to jump ahead, but that were young that could come up and actually contribute to the penalty kill because they had experience with that in the Phantoms. And I just think that this year now, the coaching has looked at it's not just going to be, G and Coots anymore. You're killing their minutes, I think, and not doing them a justice from when they come down on a power play. They're useless, or late in games they were getting tired. So I think the biggest thing that we could say from this is the coaching has been so much better, and the usage of the younger players in the penalty kill area. In particular, I'm going to say Lindblom, because he's just been amazing this year.
Yeah, absolutely. That was still has been one of, my biggest issues is, wanting to get the younger guys rotated in, get them NHL experience. And again, Hackstall with his whole veteran presence thing, when he demoted Lindblom from the second line down to the fourth and put Weiss on the second line, it was just like, holy crap, just fire him, please, God. But yeah, I mean, Lindblom he's turned into such a solid contributor. He's so smart on the ice. He said on the penalty kill, his offensive game, his board battles. I mean, he always seems to know where to be. And seeing him play with Konechny has been awesome. I mean, that was, I was always for the line of, I wanted to see Lindblom, Patrick, and Konechny together.
Yeah.
Obviously, Patrick is out, but, with Couturier in the middle, I mean, they've just been playing fantastic. But anyway, I digress. Isaiah, what do you think? Chef's made some great points, but is there anything else that you see that's contributed to the really strong success on the penalty kill?
Well, a couple things. The coaching obviously definitely makes a difference. Right? They've been more aggressive. They just don't give teams a lot of room. And those are the penalty kills that we fear when our team's on the power play, right? Not the ones that sit back. You love that. I definitely favor the aggressive approach. But also, you have to give credit to the acquisitions of Braun, Niskanen, Hayes, and the bigger role that you're getting from even guys like Travis Sanheim, who I don't think was getting a lot of penalty kill time last year. I could be wrong.
You're right.
And because of his puck skills, he's not going to win board battles, but if he gets his stick on the puck, he's going to get it out of the zone. And he's a good passer, so he can see lanes to get it out, because we all hate those failed clears. So I think it's some of the personnel as well, but I think coaching is number one. And don't forget, who's your most important penalty killer?
Goalie.
And that's your goaltender. So I don't have Carter Hart's save percentage on the penalty kill. And of course, in those situations, or Brian Elliott's, I'd like to isolate a couple of the bad games out. But that also has to be considered as a factor. And also, one last thing, the fact that Claude Giroux is now more of a secondary penalty killer on this team, which is really important, especially given the fact that he's playing center right now, and that's already enough of a grind for him.
No, there's no question. And like you said, other guys are stepping up and carrying so that they don't have to rely on Giroux. Yeah, I mean, no, without question. I mean, Hayes has been great on the PK. He uses his stick really well. It's hard for the teams to get by him to get across the blue line to even get set up. He breaks up a lot of those plays. Niskanen has been phenomenal. He's probably been the Flyers' best defenseman overall until Myers got called up anyway.
But yeah, a sidebar of that too, not to cut you off, but exactly that your point being well made right there, Myers and that. How many games last year would you have seen Myers or Sanheim being played in the last 4 or 5 minutes of a game? I mean, this just goes to show you more so than anything, I think there was a disconnect between the players and the coach last year, period. I just think, I'm meaning Haxall, not when Gordon came in. I think Gordon salvaged what he could, but at that point, you are what you are. I think what AV and his team have done coming in, they're sitting there going, you know what? We're going to give you that shot. Look at Myers. I mean, Myers played I would think he was on the ice the last 3 of the last 10 shifts of that game last night. And he was making an impact. I mean, the kid is on fire. You would not see that. I think the biggest change, I'm going to change my answer and say, is the coaches are letting the players put themselves into positions where they're going to get their confidence up, where it isn't like, and you're not going to get called up and play 8 minutes here. You're going to play 15. You're going to play your 20, and you're going to make it, and we're going to let you make the impact that we think you can, and it builds the confidence from there.
Well, and actually, both last night and in the Toronto game, you saw Myers and Sanheim on the ice less than a minute to go in a tie game. Both games they were out there with less than a minute to go. So, to your point, I mean, they're getting rewarded for playing well. They're being trusted to be able to use their talents on the ice and make the plays. And we saw right before Myers got called up, Sanheim was just kind of going into a train wreck. I mean, there were 3 straight games where he fell and they ended up scoring against the Flyers, because he fell in his own end and they just kind of went by him. And he has certainly been playing better since he's been paired with Myers on the ice. Again, yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. Looking at the other side of the special teams, the power play, they've had some different looks. They started with Giroux over on the right side instead of on the left side, which you saw a lot of people comment, fans saying that they weren't really thrilled about that. G was stronger on the left side. Being a right shot, he had that one-timer that he could blast over there. But I mean, at least they've been trying some different looks. They tried putting Provy on the first unit, which I don't think was the best thing. Now he did rack up a couple of points there. Having him on the second unit seemed to be a little bit better of a fit. Although I'm singing Myers' praises, with his shot, I think he's got the best wrister of any of the defensemen. I wouldn't mind seeing him get out there on the second power play unit a little bit. Isaiah, what do you think about what they've been trying on the power play? They were really strong in the beginning, and now they've been kind of struggling here for a bit. What's kind of stood out to you?
So many thoughts. We were talking about this on the O&B, and Shep, you recall this. We were comparing what the Flyers are doing to like NFL offensive coordinators, throwing out different formations, even within the same game, and yet when they were showing a certain look, they would go off into a variation and maybe have a guy behind the net. And to me, look, I want Giroux on the left side. Of course, it seems to make more sense. You want to set up your one-timers and all that. But now there's a whole bunch of new elements and possibilities you are alluding to with Myers. But I think they want to give him a little more time. So I like some of that. I like the new looks. They had grown stale. The whole league knew what they were going to do. I think the thing with Provorov versus Gostisbehere, and AV was talking about how Provorov is better at walking the line and getting shots through. Now, it's true. Provorov is better at getting shots through in general than Gostisbehere. It's been a problem. Gostisbehere has had to learn that, his 100-mile-an-hour slap shot is just, everybody knows it's coming. They're either going to block it or he's going to have to adjust and it goes wide, and it hasn't been working. The league kind of has him figured out on the power play, maybe in general. Ivan Provorov is not really always steady with the puck on his stick, and that concerns me. He's getting a lot of power play time. I would like to see a guy like Travis Sanheim, who has elite vision. He has a great wrist shot. If Myers has the best one, maybe Sanheim is right there with him. And I'd like to see that change. And Gostisbehere, I don't know where his place on this team is going forward, but he certainly is a better option, in my opinion, than Provorov, as long as he has the discipline to try and get the shot through. And I think he's starting to make some adjustments in that regard. As they get more comfortable with Myers, I agree with you. I think his power play time will pick up. They're going to try and probably initially on the second unit and go from there. But the main change has been that they're giving the different looks, and hopefully, they can set up shooters. That's the one weakness. Whenever Voracek is out there, like on the second unit, there's not a lot of guys that are trigger men that can shoot. So that's another reason why I would like Myers or Sanheim to get their shot. But it's certainly better than it was last year.
Going back to probably 2011, the Flyers' power play was exactly the same, right? I mean, they had Hartnell in that spot where he would fire off one-timers being fed from G, and then they put Shen in there, and then when Shen left, they tried Coots and Patrick, but everything else was exactly the same. I mean, nobody had any doubt whatsoever what the Flyers' power play was going to look like. Great point about Ghost. I mean, when he first came on the scene, people were just shocked at how hard and accurate his shot from the point was, and he was scoring like crazy, but his control has slipped. I mean, he probably misses by 4 or 5 feet more often than he gets it on net. It seems the last year or so he's just been really wild with his shot. I don't know why that's happened. To your point, I mean, is he having to really radically adjust because people were starting to figure out how to block it, or goalies are making the saves or not? But we certainly seen his production drop off dramatically. So I mean, I would certainly like to see Sanheim and Myers, because they're both great skaters. I think they both have good vision. They both pass the puck well. I think they could, bring some additional help on the power play, like you were saying. Chef, what's kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, I kind of want to piggyback on what Isaiah said. We kind of don't agree all the time, but I think he's really close on this one. At least with Provy now, you kind of want him to, like Isaiah said, fumbling with the puck at the point. He's not the best handler there, but you figure all the look he's getting on the power play that it would have improved. And I think that's why they went back to Ghost for a little bit, and they're still waiting to see. But I do concur with what you said. I love Myers' wrist shot. And I think the most important thing of all is piggybacking what you said again. They're giving that Sunoco sign and all the signs on the boards. They're getting a lot of work. That guy, they're keeping that guy in business. Has got to repaint that every time they hit it and nick off a little bit of paint. But they need to get to the net more. I mean, and that's at least what I've seen at Myers. I counted, I think, in the one game he had he gets the puck towards the net in the position. Now, he hit a couple people in the front in the last 2 games, but he's getting the puck there. And I think that's eventually you're going to see that lead to power play minutes for him, because in the end, that's what you want. It's not doing any good anymore with Ghost and all them missing the net. Those things got to be in an area where these boys can deflect it or get a rebound, a trash goal. We don't see that many trash goals from this team anymore, and it used to be their bread and butter.
That's where JVR makes his living, right in front of
Yeah.
the net, being redirecting, getting the rebounds, knocking them in. So that's a fantastic point. So speaking of defense, obviously they're doing better. They're giving up fewer goals per game. They have been leading the league in the fewest shots on goal per game. They were somewhere between 26 and 28 shots per game. I know Toronto racked up quite a few shots the other night, so I don't know exactly what that number is anymore, but they pretty much led the league since the first couple of games. You're not seeing, last year we would see early on some turnovers on the defense, and that ended up being contagious, and those would lead to more turnovers, and they would end up in the back of the net, and then you would see the forwards making mistakes, and it would just kind of be one of these snowball things where everything seemed to go wrong, and they would get rattled. They were so fragile that they just end up losing so many leads that they had. It was ending up, losing games. If they got to overtime or the shootout, they just were not succeeding there. And at least this year, we've seen fewer mistakes like that, and they haven't all ended up in the back of the net, and you haven't seen that progression of them being so fragile that any mistakes could end up tipping the game to the other side. And I think that having such experienced coaching is one of the things that has really helped in that area as well. They've got 3 former head coaches behind the bench there, so I think that's helped a lot in keeping them focused and not letting them get rattled on the ice like they used to. Obviously bringing in and having, at least right now, having the 3 righties and the 3 lefties on defense, so you kind of have the optimal pairing system. And with Niskanen being such a good puck moving defenseman on the right side, he's really helped the transition game. His overall, just his experience out there, he doesn't get rattled. He just plays every part of the defense really well. Provorov has looked better. He still doesn't. I don't think he's completely bounced back to the Provorov that we saw the first 2 years. But now with bringing Myers up, Myers I think has helped calm Sanheim down, and Sanheim is definitely playing better since Myers has been called up. I think it's pretty visible on ice, being able to see that, and that again, to like what you guys were both saying before, has led to trust from the coaching staff, so that they're out there at the end of the games. The one guy that is still floundering, and to your point, Isaiah, I don't know where Ghost is going to go from here. If he ends up where he's not the one guy that they always rely on to be on the number 1 power play and to fire off and get those goals and drive points, if he's not contributing strongly offensively, he's always kind of been the lesser of the defensive defenseman, his defensive side of the game. I'm not sure where in the pecking order he's going to end up going forward. Chef, what do you think about this?
Like I've been ragging on Ghost since the start of the season, even in the preseason for a little bit there at the beginning of the season. I think we talked about it on another podcast, ours. I think that him and I brought it up. I noticed that Braun was very good for him, Justin Braun, and they've kind of drifted back towards that pairing. I think it lends the defensive pairings now. I love Niski and Provy. I love the fact that Sanheim and Myers are together. And the jury's out on whether both of these guys will be around Braun. I mean, I like Braun. I followed him when he was San Jose. I thought he was getting a bum deal a little bit last year because he had so many rotating defensive partners, and he, I guess, never found a rhythm. But he performs. He's been good for the Flyers so far. Ghost is a constant worry to me anymore. And when everybody was ragging on defense, and this in particular Haig and all that, I get it. I know that they're not going to be your top 4 or top 6, and maybe Haig's just that guy that fills in when somebody's got an injury. I get all that, but what I don't get is how a lot of free passes that Ghost gets because he had one like really good season, in my opinion. So for me, I don't know. I mean, with Myers playing as well as he does, I know eventually, I don't know, maybe it does make Ghost expendable. I've been seeing that a lot on Twitter. And if you can maybe get something decent for him, I know his contract is reasonable, but still at the same time, if it's going to become a liability at this point, then I think eventually he might be expendable.
Yeah, I mean, he is on such a great deal, and with the Flyers being right up against the cap, that's helped them. But that also makes him attractive in a trade offer. The fact that he is on such a friendly
But
cap
Kevin,
friendly contract. Yep, go ahead.
Kevin, is he really on a great deal with how he's played over
It's fair.
50 or 60 games? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Going back to last year.
But it's better than if he was making $5 or $5.5 million.
Yeah, but listen, I don't necessarily agree that he only had one good year because he was really great in his rookie year and then he got hurt. He's played well and like he's been
Every other season.
Right, exactly. So I mean, right now the Flyers have an 8 million plus third pair. You think
Yep.
about it, because
Yep.
I think it's safe to say with the way they're being deployed that Sanheim and Myers are playing more minutes. While it would be true that Braun is taking some of the harder minutes, so it gets a little convoluted. He's also getting 58%, Justin Braun, 58% of his zone starts are in the offensive zone. So you got to give AV credit. I mean, he's really taking this deck of defensemen and really shuffling it to maximize everybody as much as he can. And the guy who stands out as the round peg in a square hole right now is Shane Gostisbehere. He's got to pick it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Braun has definitely gotten the least amount of playing time of late. Myers, I was just looking in 4 of the 6 games, he's played over 19 minutes, and he played close to 20 minutes in the two back-to-back here against Toronto and Boston. Sanheim always plays a minute or two more than he does. So yeah, I mean they're obviously, I think, utilized as the Flyers' second D pair right now, and Braun and Ghost have been dropped down into that third role. And obviously, like you said, I mean $8 million for a third pair defense is a little tough to swallow. I didn't realize how high the offensive zone starts were for Braun. That's interesting because I would have thought he would have mostly started in the defensive zone.
Yep.
So
he's not the same. He's not the same player. So I'm not trying to bust on him because he does again. Those are 5-on-5 stats. So he's I believe their zone starts or even strength or he's still playing a real significant role on the PK. And he's certainly a better choice than a guy like Robert Haig on the PK. He's more effective. He's a better player. They're really working hard, like I said earlier, to maximize this defensive group. It comes back to the coaching. It really does.
And I just looked, Ghost's offensive zone starts at 53.5. Haig's were 46. Myers is 49. Niskanen's 45. Provy's 49. Sanheim's 53. So yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I certainly don't think that Braun's going to be back next year. I mean, his contract is up at the end of the season. For what he's doing, he's too expensive, and with some of the young defense that the Flyers have in the system,
who knows? Maybe we'll come back for $2 million a year at 33 years old, and that might not be too bad. Maybe he'll be like a 6-7 guy, and him and Haig could battle it out. I mean, who knows with expansion and everything like that? What the
yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, because I was also trying to think. I mean, it's probably York is probably not going to be ready yet.
No.
Zamula. I mean, I love Zamula, right? But
yeah.
I was hoping he was going to be able to play for the Phantoms this year, but age requirement, didn't allow that.
And he's a twig too. That's the thing. He
is absolutely a twig. I mean, he's a $165 soaking wet, so he's not going to be. So they really don't have anybody. I mean, nobody else is going to be there to step up. I mean, Jennings, I don't think is going to be much of anything. So yeah, there's a little bit of a gap there. So at this point, when Warren getting injured again, the thought of trading Haig obviously are out the door. So that might make, you need a 6-7 defense pairing. I mean, Friedman's in with the Phantoms. He's
a quad A.
Yeah, he certainly isn't gonna really stand out, but filling in as a 6-7 guy, maybe. But to your point, if they can bring Braun back on a cheap deal, yeah, let him and Haig or him and Friedman, if they end up moving Haig, fight for that 6-7 spot. Chef, hey, anything else you want to talk about before we move on?
No, I just think, I will say I agree with you on what do you call it, Zamula. He was one in my notes too, not this past rookie camp, but the camp before. I saw him. I went to a couple of the practices, and I was just like floored by this. I was like, why am I noticing? I'm not a big NHL scout or anything, but I noticed him. Whenever he was out there, he was made impact. I think he's like this guy said, he's still skinny and he hasn't filled out his man bod yet. So he gets a little meat on him. I think he could be the thing, but there is a gap. We've pretty much brought up all of our good defensemen. So there is a time gap in when the next generation will be ready. It lends itself to either is Ghost really expendable, like I said earlier, or are you going to sign somebody free agent or re-sign somebody? They got a lot to think about within the next year or two.
Yeah, I mean, Zamul is a phenomenal skater, and his hockey IQ is really good. So I'm looking forward to, him starting his pro career likely with the Phantoms next year.
Last thing about him, I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea that I'm down on the player. But the thing about Zamula is he came up in Elliot Friedman's 31 Thoughts, and he caught the eye of some scouts, and they really love the kid. So don't get me wrong. I think he's definitely going to be an NHL player. He just needs time.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, and again, he's another undrafted guy that they found and signed, just like Myers. I mean, this could be two hidden gems in a row.
It makes up for drafting Moran, and now brace yourself for now. Pascal LeBurge.
Don't God. All right, we got to move on.
Said the P word.
Yeah, who's playing in Reading right now? Yeah. Okay, so the most exciting thing, and we've touched on this in each of the different aspects of where we've been talking about the Flyers so far, is the play of the Flyers newbies. I mean, it's made this season so much fun, so much more exciting. Seeing these guys that we've all watched, get drafted, play in juniors, some of them playing at the WJCs, rotating up to the Phantoms, and now seeing them succeed on the big ice, with the Flyers. The fact that Konechny leads the Flyers, he's tied for the lead in goals. He's got the lead in assists and points, 19 points overall in 17 games, and he's scored in 14 of the 17 games. He has points in 14 of the 17 games, which is really phenomenal production. Lindblom, he also has 8 goals. He's tied for the lead with Konechny. He's in second place with 14 points. Said a little bit before, Provy has rediscovered a good chunk of his game. He certainly rediscovered some of the offensive side, right? He's got 3 goals and 10 points, which is pretty solid. Seeing Joel Farabee playing on the top line with Giroux and JVR and just flying up and down the ice, his speed and creativity adding to that duo. At least one goal taken away from him, right? They thought he had the first goal of his NHL career, and then they called it back. But he's got a few points. I mean, the points are going to come. He seems to be. He's got a solid 200-foot game. He backchecks. He certainly plays bigger than his stature, right? And of course, Phil Myers, who we've all talked about. I mean, he's got goals in 3 straight games. He's got a 4-game point streak going. And he leads the Flyers in plus-minus at +7. Now, I know plus-minus doesn't carry as much weight with a lot of people as it used to, but that's still pretty solid. I mean, and oh, by the way, he has not been on the ice for an even-strength goal against in the 6 games that he's played, which is pretty freaking phenomenal. And I think he's helped Sanheim. They played well together down in the Phantoms, and I think he's really helped stabilize Sanheim's game. And now, like we said, they're this solid second pair. They're playing, right about 20 minutes a night, and they're out there at the end of the game with the game on the line. Chef, dive in here. Let me know what you think about all the success of the kids.
Breath of fresh air, isn't it? I mean, we've had people on the show on any show in the past 6, 8 months, it's always been the same thing. They can't remember when the Flyers were fun, and now they're fun again. And I think slowly but surely you're seeing like a generation of buzz around this, because exactly what we hoped, that all this stockpiling of all these picks that we said 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that some of these will come to fruition. And remember, not all of them are going to be good. Well, we got 4 good ones. We got 4 pretty good ones, and I'm happy with that. Obviously, I'm not going to say the P word again. You guys already brought it up, but some of them are going to be duds. Some of them are not going to stay with us. Some are going to be used as trading chips. You're a Myers fan. Dan, the Flyer fan, he's a Sam Moran fan, and I happen to be a big Rat guy. I like Ratcliffe, but I'm fully prepared to know that he's going to need at least another year. Who knows? He could be that chip in the trade that gets you that defenseman that we're looking for, or backup goalie, God forbid, if somebody gets hurt, that kind of thing. So I'm happy. I'm happy that the Flyers are fun again. I'm happy that the kids are contributing like we thought they would. And, I'm happy basically for myself, because I've been tooting this for like the last couple of years, that just hang in there. They're going to be good, I swear.
I love Ratcliffe too. I was saying he was my dark horse to make it. Obviously, he needs a good year down, with the Phantoms. But the Phantoms are fun to watch too. I mean, obviously, a lot of them have been called up recently, which is great. Still got Morgan Frost, Rupsoff, Vroby, Obey Kubel. They've got some more good young guys down there. The one thing on the Phantoms I would say is it's unfortunate they don't have a single young prospect on the Phantoms this year. And me and Jamie and some other guys were kind of pushing to for them to give Wyatt Wiley a contract, because he turned 20 this month, or will turn 20 this month, so he was eligible. At least it would have been nice to see one young defensive prospect out there, but seeing the young guys at both levels has been pretty exciting. Isaiah, jump right in.
Well, I think that, with the young guys, we had nothing else to look forward to. We did so many shows at the O&B where Flyers were just moribund at best last year. They were down 2-0 in 32 of their 82 games. I mean, what else was there to talk about after a while, except they're coming, we're going to be there, one day we'll be better. And then you look at the roster right now, even some of the guys that have been here, like Rupsoff and Vorobiev, maybe one of those two will end up being major contributors. But you look at all the players that are under the age of 25 who are contributing, like Farabee and even Trorinsky, has gained more confidence. And I don't like him on the third line. I think he's a fourth line forward, but he's using his speed, his forecheck. He's looking like a guy who can be a solid fourth line player, who's going to eat minutes and try to eat up zone time. That's all you want from your fourth line. If you have 3 good scoring lines, or we hope that when the Flyers get healthy, at least they will. But really, the story of the young players right now is with the 2 guys up front, Konechny and Lindblom, and then the emergence of Phil Myers and hopefully Sanheim, who's done, he's done toppling like a statue, like he was last week. But you know what? He got back. He got a goal. What was it, in the Montreal game? I think that was the one. I don't know, was that or a Carolina game? One of them where he fell again. But now he's back to where he was kind of last year, or at least getting back toward that. But they had to have, and this is what Chuck Fletcher's calculation was. If he's going to hang on to Giroux and Voracek, he had to get some improvement with the guys they had here. And he's getting it from the young guys, in addition to adding Niskanen and Hayes. So he put puzzle pieces together here, and right now they're trending well. I think we'll know a lot more by the end of the month. They'll have played 16 games in 30 days. And I was listening earlier where somebody said, just 10 days ago, Carolina and Buffalo were the talk of the league, right? Now they're not even in the playoff position. So I don't want to be overly exuberant. Let's see what they're like on December 1st. But right now, listen, let's enjoy it, right?
And again, like we've all said, the Flyers had just become boring, frustrating. I mean, it was to the point last year where I was so angry with the crap that Hackstall was doing with the team, benching the young guys or burying them on the fourth while playing the has-beens. I could barely even watch the games. I was rooting for them to lose at one point there, and it's so exciting, so much fun to get that young blood, get that energy out there on the ice, and to see these guys. Again, like I said, we've seen these guys for several years now, right? They're in their early 20s, and we've seen them since they got drafted or signed, like in Myers' case. Seen them play as teenagers and now into their early 20s, and seeing them succeed on the ice. It's making for a lot more enjoyable product on the ice.
And of course, we can't leave out Carter Hart. I mean,
oh well, yeah, geez.
He just carries himself like a big adult. That's why his mental and his maturity is just amazing that you forget he's only 19 years old. He's the youngest of all of them.
Well, yeah, no, he's 21.
Oh, 21. My bad.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
Farabee, I'm a little worried that Farabee's going to run into a bit of a brick wall, kind of like February or something. So what's the deal with the contract? Like, I know his entry level contract, he's into it now, but what his free agency status is after 40 games? Isn't there some kind of threshold there? Like whether he could go to arbitration or something like that. I forget. I'm not good with the contract.
Yeah, I'm not either.
The overall point is people shouldn't panic if he kind of hits the wall and sinks a little bit. His metrics aren't great. Of course, some of that is because he was playing with not as good a line. Let's give him a little more of a run with Giroux and JVR. And I like a lot of what I see. But if he has a whole bunch of games like he did last night, where he was running into Bruins all night and they were running into him, I could see, because of some of his lack of physical maturity, he might really hit a wall. And I'm not going to panic about it, but I'm just preparing people. I've kind of seen this before.
Okay, so before we go, let's just go around the horn. Chef, anything you want to touch on before we sign off?
Yeah, Voracek's name was only mentioned once, and I know what Isaiah said about Tawinski, but the thing is, he probably doesn't belong on that third line. He may be a solid fourth liner, but guess what? Tawinski is blocking shots, he's forechecking, he's doing everything right, and he's not the worst player on that third line right now, and that's all I'll say about him. And that's all I'll say.
And you said it well, my friend. Isaiah.
Yeah, I guess the last thing I would say is now with Giroux kind of coming out there and saying that he's so worried about his defensive responsibilities at center, almost kind of like hint, hint, wink, wink. I'd sure like to go back to left wing, and we'd all like to see him back at left wing. There's going to be a clarion call if Morgan Frost keeps scoring to call him up. And I would say, because of what's going on with Nolan Patrick, developing Morgan Frost as a center becomes paramount. And to do that, you have to recognize he has a way to go. He needs to get stronger so he can keep up with the pace of play. And he needs to be a better defensive player and be aware of where he's at in the neutral zone and his coverages. So let's not rush him up, because we might need him in case Nolan Patrick's career is in jeopardy. Let's use as much patience as we can with him. He'll really benefit from it. So that was like the last thing that was on my mind.
That's a great point. And obviously, Nolan Patrick's health is something that is hanging over the Flyers at this point. What if he can't come back at all this year, right? Right now, unfortunately, Lawton has also been out. So when Lawton comes back, you figure maybe Giroux goes back to the wing, Coots is 1C, Hayes 2C, Lawton 3C, and then Andrioff or Raffl centering the fourth line. That gives them a little bit more stability, takes, like you said, some of that defensive pressure off G.
But you know what I'm thinking, Kevin? They really like Lawton a lot better at left wing
On wing, yeah.
on the third line. Now, if he's fourth line center, that's like kind of like a different thing. So I don't know if Lawton's going to be the answer to that. He should be back, by the way, according to Bill Meltzer, in like a couple weeks or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong or you're right. I'm just saying I'm wondering what the calculation is with the Flyers right now with that, because I have migraine syndrome, and we talked about it on the O&B. Good luck. Now,
Yeah.
I heard today that Nolan Patrick was really making progress, and then recently he regressed to the point he had a setback where he's really no further along than he was when the whole thing started. Snow the goalie people. So I really I don't know what to tell you. This is a type of thing where he could go to another specialist, and the specialist could say, "Oh no, this is connected to your concussions." So then what? It really is a very difficult condition to treat.
Well, it would just be the Flyers' luck, that they get the number 2 pick overall, and then he can't play hockey anymore, and that would just be horrible for him, being such a young guy. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I forgot about that. I mean, certainly Tornsky is not the answer as the third line left winger. Yeah, if Patrick doesn't come back, then it probably makes more sense that they got to have somebody a little bit stronger on that left side and put Tornsky down on the fourth line.
I don't know. Do
Yeah.
they make a trade? I mean, that's something you could maybe talk in a different episode. Maybe
Right.
Maybe a little more time, get to that December 1st mark and see where they're at.
What is the timetable for Lawton? Do we know?
2 weeks. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he'll need conditioning. I'm not sure. He just hurt a hand, so he's probably skating. You saw Pitlick struggle, but I don't know if Pitlick's struggles were necessarily because he came back too soon or he didn't really have a training camp. So Lawton had a training camp. He should be able to step pretty much right in as long as his hand's okay. These guys these guys are amazing the way they just work through these injuries.
All right. Well, hey, it's that time again, Flyers fans. We appreciate you being out there. It has been my pleasure to have the two guys from the O&B Puckcast on the show tonight. And we hope the Flyers will continue their strong play of late, and we'll see how it goes. But for now, good night, Flyers fans, and go Flyers.